thank you, and really nice to see you all again. I think it's the fourth or fifth time that I'm speaking here, so it's really exciting. So thank you for the organizers for having me again. Today I'm going to talk about Google Analytics. I was thinking probably nobody is going to come when I talk about analytics, but however, Analytics 4 is a very current topic, so I'm very happy that you guys are here. So just a few words for people who don't know me. My name is Pascal. I'm the CEO for digital marketing at Fischer Appelt. Fischer Appelt is Germany's second biggest agency for communication. We do everything from PR, marketing, events, creation, content, and we have offices all over Germany, as well as Doha and New York, so quite international. Prior to that, I'm in this position for 5 years now. Prior to that, I was at Berlin and managing the e-commerce and the digital marketing, HRS, Unister, and in the music industry. So I use analytics for, I think, 17 years, not exactly since it started a few weeks later. And now, when I started this presentation, I said, why GA4? I think everybody knows now why GA4. We don't have a lot of time anymore. In 4.5 months, Google will switch off Universal Analytics. I'm going to use quite often the term GA3, because it's simply easier, GA4, GA3, to compare it. They will switch it off, and the only way to measure your data will be with another tool, for example, Analytics 4. So that's the big date. About 2 or 3 weeks ago, Google sent an email to everyone who uses GA3 that they will now switch it over to GA4, beginning of March. And at the end of June, they will stop collecting data in GA3. And at the end of this year, you will not be able to see your historical data. So there is quite a lot of action to do. Even though the change will be done automatically, what many people called me after they were doing it, they were saying, I don't see anything in GA4. That is not interesting. And this is why I'm going to show you a little bit now. What are the core differences? What is the technical differences in tracking? What's the measurement models? We're going to look at the metrics and the standard reports. And then comes the really cool part, the custom reports, the attribution model that they have integrated now, the use of BigQueries, and to wrap up, we're going to have a quick look at the alternatives, the roadmap, and I'm going to save a little bit time for Q&A. So I'm only going to be at the surface of those topics because it's quite a lot of one. Everybody let me know afterwards all the topics that you want to deep dive. So, what are the big differences between Universal Analytics and GA4? So, the old version used cookies. You can have the slides as well afterwards. Just send me a note so you don't have to take pictures here. The old one used third-party cookies. We all know what's happening with third-party cookies, so it's a problem. The new version still uses them, but they have machine learning to enrich the base. So this is really cool. You're going to have more data out of the same number of people. Universal Analytics was made for beginners. That's probably why it was so super popular. Totally easy to use and free of charge. Now the new version, that is very, very advanced. You need to know how to use it, and then you can get a whole lot out of it. I'm going to talk quite a lot about events today, because the bases are events, not sessions anymore. BigQuery, we're going to have a session about this in a few minutes, because this is free now for GA4 users, which is amazing. It allows you to do lots of magic. In the past, when you had an app and a website, you needed Firebase, you had different properties, you needed to put them all together into roll-up property. That is not necessary anymore. It is all integrated into one, so that is really, really cool. We're now focusing on active users, not on sessions anymore, which is quite nice. The account properties, we already talked about it. You have very easy activation of standard goals, which is really nice. This was more complicated in the past. You have segments. You used to have segments instead of audiences. Now you have audiences instead of segments. I'm going to skip this for today because of reason for time. And the big difference is really, you had quite a lot of standard reports in GA3 in the past. And in GA4, there are almost none. So that is really interesting. However, with the use of Google BigQuery and advanced methods, you can really get a whole lot more out of it. So let's start with user tracking. In the past, we had different models, cookie-based, user IDs, and so on, and they were seen independently from each other. And now, with machine learning, Google Analytics is able to combine those together. And they can see, are you a user? They can combine those with user IDs and user tracking, no matter if you're coming from the website or over the apps, and they can combine you to one user. So you're going to have less users, but in the past, sometimes one person used to be 3 users. So this is going to be totally different. That is really nice. And this leads to a different measurement model. So you remember in the past, basically everything was session-based. Different sessions could be added to one user. However, we usually looked at the sessions, and sometimes 2 users were still 1 person. This is now totally different. Everything is based on this one user because they can aggregate the data from different properties, be it a mobile, be it an app, to one user, and then they have those different events. And each event is contributing into this view of the user. So it's all around the human, not around the session anymore. And this one human can have several sessions, several events that are combined in there. So what are all those sessions that I'm talking about, all those events that I'm talking about all the time? Those are things that happen on your website or on your app. There are some standard ones which here in blue, which Google contributes you automatically. So for example, those track events like first event, user engagement, start of a session. But also more enhanced ones, how deep do you scroll? Did you download files? Did you watch a video? How far did you watch it? Did you use a site search and so on? So these are standard ones. And they're integrated by default, so that's really nice. However, there's some recommended ones as well. There are like logins, put a product into a cart, remove it from the cart, begin the checkout, end the checkout, and so on. So really nice ones. But what is really, really cool about Analytics 4, you can create an event from anything you want. And this could be the submission of a form. This could be the hit of any button. This could be the watching of a webinar, streaming, like we have it now here. Or what we do at Fisher Apple quite often, those engagement levels. Those are mini algorithms of different of those events which we combine to see how engaged is this session on a website, which is especially interesting in B2B, or when you have really long chains between first visit and buying, actually. So you can build any event that you want directly in here. And these will be used in quite a few times. Before we look at this, 2 big differences. We have some metrics that are more or less the same. New users are still new users. Sessions are still sessions, and so on and so forth. But you have this one thing here. In the past you had users, now you have active users. And this might not seem like a big difference, but it is actually. Because an active user, it is a person that is so-called engaged user, and that is someone who has spent at least 10 seconds on your website, or has done 2 page views, or had 1 conversion event. So when you think back at all these events that we could create, you can all the time say, is this an event, or is this a conversion event? So your ultimate goal on your website. So the active user is way more restricted than this user in the past. And this counts for everything that is engaged. Bounce rate, engagement rate, for example. Just to give you an example, that are the values of one of our clients where we have the GA3 and GA4 running at the same time. So exact same website, exact same time. You see here we had around 4,000 people, and now on GA4 we have less than 4,000 people. So it's less people. There's a huge difference in the bounce rate. It almost more than doubled from 18% to 41% in total. Exactly the same website, but the ways the tools measure it are different. So this is really the first recommendation. Have both tools as soon as possible implemented, just in case you don't have it yet, because you need to learn. It's like a new currency which you have to learn. Not like you have now less people on your websites or less quality. just calculated differently. And you will need to get used to this new way. Those events, those metrics are in those standard reports. You know from the past, you had the audience, the acquisition, the behavior, the conversions. You still have that. So it's easy. It's called a little bit different, but it's more or less the same. You can personalize them a little bit if you click library on the bottom, and then you can do some personalization. However, that is more or less the same. What gets really interesting now are the custom reports. There are 6 types of custom reports which you can use. I'm going to deep dive a little bit on a few ones of them. User lifetime, it's obvious what it is in an e-commerce conference. The freeform, which is the one I like the most, the funnel exploration, path exploration, you can see the segments and also the cohorts. So let's have a look at the freeform, because now you really understand how these different things that I just told you come together. A freeform is what the name says, completely free. You can have a table, for example, like here. You can have a graph, you can have bubbles, you can have a pie chart, whatever suits you best. And in here, you can combine dimensions, yeah? For example, the segments of your people, geographics, for example, the devices, which are they coming from, the demographics, yeah? And down here, you can also have all those events that you created. And you can pull them all in here. And then you can combine them in any way you want. For example, here we said we want to have a table, and we want to see the average revenue of this shop based on the device the user is coming from. So what is different on tablet, on phone, or on desktop, actually? You can simply make a cross table with those. But you can make it even, you can add dimensions in there. So for example, you can look people who used the search function versus people who did not use it. And then you can see the difference. And this can be done with any of those events you have created 2 slides earlier. So this is really where it all comes down. You have to think of really, really smart and hard and long. What do I want to measure? And how do I want to combine it? Because this can be displayed exactly the way your website, your shop needs it. And that is totally new, and this is absolutely amazing. This is not coming out of the box. You have to build your own events. You have to set up your own free form. And you have to think of how to visualize it, what to compare with what method. So this is really, really exciting thing, yeah? The funnel exploration, similar. We used to have a funnel exploration in the past as well, yeah? The different form of the checkout. However, you can have here more or less any event that you created up here instead. For example, if you do not have an e-commerce website, but a B2B website, you do not have a card, yeah, because you don't need it. So you put in here the events that you created. For example, how deep is user engaged with an engagement level. And then again here, you can split it down to all those different dimensions that you have in your website, yeah, in your analytics. And then you can compare it, where do you lose people of that segment, of that geographical reason, of that device, where are your problems? So this is really, really cool, and again, completely flexible. The path analysis has majorly improved as well. Yeah, you can now start from one website and see what happened afterwards, or from the finishing website and see what happened prior to it. So what happened before the purchase? So this is really, really nice, and you can follow those paths. So you see, with all those custom reports that you can do it, you can use the entire data that is available, because you define those events and then you use them in your reportings. Next cool chapter is attribution modeling. Yeah, people who follow me quite a while know I love attribution. I spent a little bit too much time of my life in statistics. That's where it comes from. In the past, we had some kind of attribution model in GA. Yeah, you remember those first step, last step, or last Google click, where you use Google ad click, where you say, nobody needs this, seriously, yeah? This is why quite a few attribution models came out to the market, and that we're going to do this for you. However, they're cookie-based. They got a problem now. But if you use those bubbles that I showed you in the beginning and you combine those different methods of knowing who is this person, then you do not rely on cookies anymore. And if you combine them to attribution, this can become really smart. And what is new here is quite cool. Suddenly there's a data-driven attribution model in GA4, which you did not have before. You still have these last Google ad clicks and nonsense like this in there. But this is really, really cool. Yeah? And they're using statistical methods to see, to calculate the value of each chain, of each touch point that you had. And they do not rely on the cookies. They use bubbles I showed you in the beginning. Again, here you can use any event as a conversion event, which you created up here and say, it can be the purchase, it can be the revenue, it can be whatever is important for your website. So all those things come together in this part. And if you think of where can I use it, we gave you a really nice example here. A client who clicks on a paid search ad first, Googles you on social, organic, clicks on an affiliate ad, might in average have a 2% conversion probability. If you take that same person and he Googles something, your brand or your product, afterwards clicks on the ad, and you see in this chain you have a 3% conversion probability, you'll see that you have an increase of 50%. That is quite cool. So what you can do now is create a segment of people that had exactly this chain, mark them, send this information to Google Ads, and tell them increase your bid modifier, because if this segment Googles something, this is going to increase the conversion probability by 50%. So the CPC put it up, yeah, because this is really cool. It's totally different than somebody who is at this point of the chain. Yeah? And those are things you can do now directly out of Google with all these data and push it directly back into the tools. Another really cool thing for statisticians is BigQuery. So BigQuery is the data warehouse in the cloud by Google. Not actually up here, but yeah, in my mind. What is really, really nice now, it is free of charge. It used to be quite expensive. I think 2 cents per gigabyte. You don't think 2 cents is nothing, but a gigabyte, that's really fast if you have a lot of data. Yeah? So now it's free. You can take all your data from GA4 and store it there. By the way, you can also use this to store your Google Analytics 3 data in Google Cloud to have it available next year. Yeah? So you don't lose your historical data. And then you can compare it nicely as we showed it previously. Yeah? But you can also connect here different sources. So all your meta ads you're doing, all your DSP ads, all your activities there, you can push this data as well into the cloud, and then you can combine them, and then you can do all those mathematician fantasies that you can dream of, and to calculate all the values and all the things that help you with your e-commerce and your digital marketing. And then you can push it out again into Google Data Studio, or Logger Studio as they call it now, or Tableau, and whatever you want, and visualize those data. Yeah? So that you can really see how are those different channels interacting with each other. So, of course, you may ask, why do I only talk about GA4? Are there not any alternatives? Especially now, I mean, Google, American company, you know, all these discussions here. I had a small survey in LinkedIn a couple of weeks ago, where I said, well, in 150 days, so it's about a month ago, there will be no universal analytics anymore, which is going to be your alternative. And actually, more than half will actually stay with analytics. They will just simply switch off to GA4. After this survey, Google announced that they will automatically switch all the GA3 accounts to GA4, like 3 weeks ago. Yeah, which I believe if I would ask the same question now, this is not 58%, probably it's 75%. Yeah, Matomo, Piwik obviously are nice alternatives. I'm not going to talk about them now. If you have any questions, let me know and we can dive on this. So, a little roadmap for the implementation. This slide is a little bit old because it starts with implement the code. I would now wait 1 week and it's going to be done by Google, so that is cool. Check mark. However, all those funky things, all those custom reports, they will not be there. Only those standard reports, and you won't see a lot. So you need a good tagging plan. You need to know what you want to measure, how you want to display it, what you want to do for it. Based on this, create your custom events that you actually tag them and use them. Yeah, with them you can do your custom reports where you can visualize this in here. You can use Google BigQuery, obviously, as I said, use it as a backup for your universal analytics data so you don't lose your historical data of 18 years, yeah, when you have an old shop. And use dashboards to visualize it. If you have a shop, use the attribution model, set it up, and push this data into your DSPs so that you can actually use it and do it there. And obviously, train your team so that you can do it. If you guys need any help, as I said, we're a big agency, so we can help you with this. I'm not going to do a lot of advertising here, but we have a standard product for the implementation of custom reports, training of your team, and so on. So if you need a head start, simply let us know. And I had the goal of saving a few minutes for Q&As. I'm very happy. I hope I didn't talk too much. One thing ahead of that, I know time is the most valuable thing you guys have. That's why we at Fischer Appelt always say, as a thank you for your time. Yeah, we have a raffle after every talk. If you want to participate, send an email to performance@fischerappelt.de with meet and greet in the thing there. What you can win is a 30-minute consultancy on any digital marketing topic, without obligation, without anything. Leave us your question, we'll help you, because we value so much your 23 minutes that you gave to us here. And to motivate many questions, because I love it when you ask questions, because I use analytics for 17 years by now, so I'm happy if you had.
So I see some questions.
And the first one is going to win the book of our owner of the company. Super exciting book about the future of marketing. So yeah, you earned it. The guy who's standing up in the middle.
Mm-hmm. So okay, so first one.
Just if you pick it up afterwards.
Hi, my name is Andy. I'm working for Cardweb, and I have a question exactly what you mentioned about this attribution model and the cross-channel. So at my point of view, there's needing to add, beside an analytics cookie, also like a marketing cookie, because you use that data for Google Ads to align different CPC on a different section. Like, let's say, so it's like a light CRM. Also, I saw also under user signals and targeting groups, there are this predictive data for possible target groups. So there's to be add as well a marketing cookie for the cookie consent, right? Did I understand it correctly?
Yeah, you can obviously add different pixels there and well, but this is a click-based model, so it's not a view-based model. Yeah, but with a click-based model, you can also use it directly.
Okay.
But you can enrich obviously the data with more pixels that you have in there.
Okay, thanks.
How do you assure that the customers can use the data in the future? Like there are some discussions on GA4 is not GDPR compliant in some of the European countries. Is there any answer on that?
Yeah, my standard answer is I'm a marketeer, not a lawyer. So please ask your lawyer. I mean, we're setting this up for you guys when we do it, obviously without tracking personalized data, so that from our point of view, it is GDPR compliant. But please, this is not illegal. Yeah, I'm forced to say this. It's not illegal. Beratung here. Ask your lawyer. Yeah, but yeah. Data is usually, especially with BigQuery, you can store it on European servers. So it should stay here, but yeah.
So some more questions here.
Hi, I've done a couple of GA4 migrations myself, and I noticed one thing that user numbers tend to be lower, total users, not active. I figure that's oftentimes because returning users are higher in GA4 due to the fact that it can recognize those users a bit better. Do you reckon there's any other reasons, or am I just doing everything wrong?
Yeah, well, the total number of users is usually lower at GA4, that's correct, simply because you remember on one of the first slides I had those bubbles where based on the different tracking methods, you could be considered as two people. So if you use a website on your mobile phone, for example the app, and then you use it on your website 2 hours, 2 days later, might be seen as two users. Even if you have a roll-up property and they get together, then you are two users. By combining those things, they realize, hey, that's the same person. And this is why automatically you have less people on the website. Plus, of course, the percentage of returning people is higher because it's not like two new people, it's like one person in total coming twice.
Yeah, so it's mainly because of returning users. Although I will mention that I don't have a case where there's multiple properties. Like most of them, I'm doing web only, and it's all within one property. But yeah, I reckon it's because of returning users.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's not because of returning users, it's because of different calculation method.
Okay.
Which leads to increase of returning users and decline of total users.
All right. Thank you.
Welcome.
There are some more questions in here. We still have time, that's okay.
Hi. Regarding the metrics that you mentioned, that metrics in Google GA4 is different than universal one. For example, the bounce rate, in your example, it was 18%, it was 40, and then it went down to 18%. The question is that, what is the benchmark when it comes to such data? I mean, for a shop owner who's not an expert, let's say, who's not an agency, sometimes those numbers, they don't really mean much. So we go and search for benchmarks and in the market. So now the benchmarks are going to be different for GA4. And what is the source of truth when it comes to benchmarks?
That is a good question, which is asked quite often. So many of those metrics are not comparable. That's what I showed you. And it is very, very easily seen on bounce rate. Because on GA3, for example, if you come to a website and you don't do anything, but you spend 10 minutes reading 10 minutes of text, and then you leave again, then you bounce. So what some smart people did is after 1 second or 0.1 second, fire an event, has been here for 0.1 seconds, then you actually did something, you stayed there for 0.1 seconds, and you have a bounce rate of 0. So it's already here you see having a benchmark, what is a good bounce rate, is impossible because, I mean, you can do more or less any trick you want. So for GA4, I told you, you have to be there at least 10 seconds, or see 2 pages, or have this conversion event. For example, you could create an event, has been here for 0.1 seconds, define it as a conversion event, and as soon as it fires, you have an engaged session. Therefore, this is not going to be a bounce. What I want to say is, you can do so much with it, you cannot compare it with other sites, because everybody can do it. You have to compare it with your own site over time. You should always try to improve yourself. If you have other websites where you befriended with them, ask them what exactly is your definition of a bounce rate, how did you set this up, and then compare. This is always possible, but if you look at any comparison websites, what is an average bounce rate? It's not like a CPC on Google where you say a brand CPC and you can take it over 1 million campaigns and you get an idea. Especially with engagement in GA4, because it's so flexible, it's hard to compare. But the flexibility is awesome because you can set it up exactly like you want. Because maybe for your website, 10 seconds makes no sense. So you can set it exactly like it is good for you to improve your own thing. So you have to put in the intelligence that you own to very well define it.